Hello and welcome to another playbook. This one is going to be about content and how users engage with content. Right. I've been working in the content space one way or the other for 17 plus years now. First as a author, I used to write books for kids, both science fiction and fantasy. Then as a game designer on some incredibly large games like Mafia Wars and Cafe World, I spent the last few years at one of India's largest OTT companies, Hotstar, now called Disney Plus Hotstar, building out the entire sort of social infrastructure and figuring out how people interact and engage with the content that we put out there, including things like the IPL. So, content is something very close to my heart. And what we've seen over the last few years is content has really exploded, both in terms of the amount of content that's available and the creation of content. We've started seeing user generated content become a real force. We saw the rise of TikTok in India and globally. Uh, and we've seen that content is becoming a true powerhouse, and apps like ShareChat, etc., are really, really emerging as big consumer tech products. So, here, what I wanted to do was share a framework of how one thinks about content and how one thinks about the way users engage with content in different ways. So, this is a framework for any of you who ever work in the space of consumer tech, content consumer tech. But anyone who's thinking about bringing content to what they are doing, you could be a B2B product, you could be a SaaS product. This framework would give you a way to figure out how your content sits into the overall product landscape and what are the things that you can do to engage your users. So let's jump in. On the x axis, we're going to sort of have draw out one line and then we'll draw out another line on the y axis. And what we are going to do is we're going to put different aspects on these two axes and then build out a grid. So the very first thing in content is consumption. Consumption is a very passive activity. You sit, you watch a movie, you read a book, you listen to music. You're consuming content, you're reading content, you're seeing content, right? You're listening to content. But it's very passive. You're not doing anything in return. The second act is reacting to what you have read, seen, or heard, right? So I clap when I see a six being hit on the screen. I go on Twitter and write a comment about the fact that that was a great captaining decision, right? Or that was great fielding by somebody who's just caught the ball. I react to a post put out by a friend, right? So we react to what we have watched. And this is the first step where consumption goes from passive to a little bit on the active side. Then there is interaction. I don't want to sit and passively watch somebody else win who wants to be a millionaire or kaun banega crorepati. I also want to answer that question. And when I'm answering that question, I also want to win a prize. I want to participate in a reality TV show's poll, right? I want to be responsible for eliminating a person on a reality show that I don't like, or I want to make sure that one of the contestants who I really like stays on in the dance show that I'm watching. So, interactivity is all about either interacting with the content, perhaps changing the content as a result, right? But also interacting with the other people who are perhaps watching that content. And in this last sort of thing, so you've consumed content, you have reacted to it, you have interacted with people and content. And the last bit that you can do is you can create as a reaction to what you have watched. So I like a set of movies. So I create a playlist on YouTube of my favorite videos, or I create a playlist on Spotify of my favorite music, or I really like a meme that I'm seeing on Reels, Instagram Reels, and I create a video in response to that Reel. So the act of curation and creation sits in this fourth bucket, right? Now, this is on the x axis. So you consume, you react, you interact, and you create as a user. So these are the four things that users can do. But on the y axis, is you can do all of these things solo. So I can consume something solo, I can read a book solo, I can react to it, right? In my own room, sitting while reading a book, I can go, whoa, that just happened, right? So that's me reacting to it. I could interact with it, while playing a game, I could interact with the game, I could answer an online quiz and win prizes. That's me interacting with it. right? And I could create something in response to it, and I can do all of these things without intervention from anyone else. So I can consume, react, interact, or create content all on my own. But it is more fun if I do it with friends. So, friends here refers to your social graph. Right now, it could be a one unidirectional social graph or it could be a bidirectional social graph. But the fact is that this is your family, your friends, people you're connected to in one way or the other. And I can consume with my friends. I can react to content with my friends. I can interact with content with my friends. And I can create things with my friends, right? And then the last one is community. Community is a much broader graph. It's not just people that you know directly, but it's random people around the world who might be fans of very similar things as you are. So everyone watching a cricket match in the country, they're not your friends, but it's a billion people sitting and watching cricket, right? So you can again consume as a community, you can react to things as a community, and you can interact as a community. You can also create as a community. What we're going to do now is that now that we've built out this grid, so if you think about it, this is a 4x3 grid, and the weird part is, on every cross section, there are not just a multitude of features, but a multitude of products. If you really think about it and you sort of break down the world of social apps, you break down the world of content apps, and you realize that some of them are very squarely in one cell of this grid. Some perhaps occupy two or three cells. Nobody occupies all 12 as of now, right? And there is opportunity in every aspect of this. So what we're going to do next is just sort of go over each cell and see the kind of things which happen, the kind of instances of these things in real life and the kind of instances of them in the online space, right? And this will give you a good sense of where you can peg yourself when you're trying to think about features in your products and when you're trying to build new content consumption products, right? So this is now a filled out grid, and again, by no way is it exhaustive, but we'll just try and go over it one by one and try and see what are the various things, what are the ways in which people do these things, right? So on the cell on consumption and you, text, audio, video, short content length, long content length. Pretty much the entire OTT space is here, squarely here, and they have not moved to any of the other cells, right? And that's where the big opportunity in content is. Reacting to content, so likes, emojis, commenting on social media, all sits here. Interacting with content, right? So you're answering questions, you're voting, you're participating in polls, and again, the interaction could be real time. You do something and something changes in the content that you're watching, right? But it could be delayed, that hey, you voted this week and a contestant on the show got eliminated in next week's episode, right? So the action reaction pair here could be delayed, and that's fine. But the fact is that you gave powers to the consumers. And then in the creation bucket, you curate something. So you put together your favorite music, you analyze, right? And you draw inferences, you transform what you're building. So, which is the act of creating a meme out of, say, a scene in the movie, right? Or something out of a game. And then there's actual pure content creation, right? So I listen to a piece of music and then I dance to it, right? I watched somebody dance and I reacted to their dance and I created another dance form. So all of that sits there. But now add friends to this mix, right? So can you consume with friends? And yeah, read along, listen along, watch along. You go to a movie with a friend, right? But even in the online space, even my friend could be sitting in the UK and I could be sitting in India, and we could watch a Premier League match together while listening to each other's audio, right? Or in fact, seeing each other on the video, right? Pretty much all of social media is you reacting to friends. So a friend posts something on Facebook or Instagram and you react to that, and a bunch of friends start commenting on it and making fun of their friends. This is essentially reacting to friends, right? Interacting with friends, you have a contest with friends. Who's going to run more? Who's going to win this particular game? Or, hey, you and I bet against each other and we interact. So you're interacting with the content plus along with your friends while doing something, right? And the last bit is you can actually the curated list that you created, you share it with your friends. So hey, these are my favorite movies, these are my favorite TV shows, this is the music I listen to, so your recommendation. And then of course you can also collaborate with your friends on some of these things. So this becomes a really, really interesting way of sort of thinking about how your social graph and you engage with content in different ways. And the last bit, if we think about community, right? Consuming with community is sort of the oldest thing in the world, right? We go to movie theaters and concert halls and in a disco, right? But now that sort of moved to online concerts and broadcasts, where you are consuming and you're very aware and very aware of the fact that there are other people who are also consuming along with you. But then you react to things you watch, and the classic example of that is watching sports in a sports bar, where fans of two different clubs are reacting to what they are watching and sort of hollering at each other and abusing each other. But that's the joy. That's the joy of going to a sports bar or going to a stadium and watching this. But if you really think about it, the entire community reacts to things, social media trends, right? Something political happens, or the Olympics are going on right now, and the world is reacting. The entire community is reacting to somebody winning a silver, right? And this is where things become interesting. This is where communities can react together. But then communities can also interact with each other. Fantasy sports is a great sort of vertical, right? People create teams, they fight it out with the rest of the community. You're trying to see whose team is better, right? Live streaming, all of live streaming pretty much is, here's a broadcaster, a streamer who's engaging, who's playing a game, and you're watching the content of this person playing a game. So you're engaging with the other people who are watching this content, but you're also engaging in real time with the person who is live streaming. And this person is changing his or her tactics while playing, right? It becomes even more immersive, where now users can change the level design, right? So you can play along, and which is where somewhere over here, the community, you can now start playing along with people, where they change the landscape of the game that you're playing. So the entire community is sort of forcing you to play in one way, and you're broadcasting. So the content is changing as a result of people interacting with it and creating in response to what is being played. Teaching, right? Live interactive teaching is like you are asked a question, so you change what you're answering. You come up with a new methodology, and that's a great example. But this is where I think a lot of exciting things are happening in the world of games. For example, with Roblox and Minecraft, where people create on top of what other people have created, right, and build completely new things, and the entire community consumes it, right? The term metaverse is sort of becoming very prevalent, but if you really think about it, a metaverse would allow you to do all these things online. You'll be able to consume, react, interact, and create in response to whatever you're viewing in a very deep, immersive way, yourself, with your friends, and with the entire community. So this framework is pretty rugged. I've tested it out over many years, and pretty much everything in the content space as of today falls in one of these cells, falls in one of these buckets, right? So when you think about content, you should think about this. You should think about, what is it that you want your users to do? Do you want them to react to what is being put out? Do you want them to interact? Or do you want user generated content? You want people to create in response to what they are seeing, right? And I think that's the creation bucket has been a very exceptionally wonderful bucket, where user generated content has taken on a life of its own. But even if you had content created by content experts, right? Movies and TV shows being produced by experts. There are ways of making it more of getting users to react to it and interact with it in more interesting ways. So the canvas is pretty broad, and by thinking along these lines, thinking along these X and Y axes, you can think of new ways in which people could interact with your products. So hopefully this was helpful for anyone who's in the content space, but it's hopefully also helpful to anyone who wants to get into the content space and wants to think about how users engage with content and how users create content as a response to it. So take care and thank you. Enjoy.